which is what is actual good governance and how do you interpret and implement it. And it will be conducted by six ladies. One is Irene Mokmolu, second one is Doreen Neil, Marty Mausi, Dolores Moreno, Valerisa Becker, and Miriam Preckler. So, first of all, I would like to invite Doreen Neil. Please come here and say a few words.
I think actually I should start. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'll start. I don't have to stand up. Right? No. I'm going to start just, oops, is that really loud? Can you, is that okay? Okay. I'm going to start because for the last 12 years, I've actually worked for a center, which at the Kennedy School at Harvard University, which focuses on good governance. That's our mission. So I thought I would start us off because obviously we at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation have quite a few ideas about what good governance should look like. So I thought I'd just talk really quickly about what our, when I say our, what the faculty and the staff and the fellows there have been working on in concerning good governance and how we look at it. So we were founded about 10 years ago by a man named Roy Ash, hence the Ash Center. And he was a gentleman who really, sort of in some ways before his time, really believed in how fragile democracy was and how under threat it was going to be if we didn't pay more attention to it. And that particularly, although there were a lot of great ideas about how to fix government, there wasn't a lot of attention being paid to the institutions of government and how we actually were governing ourselves. Talk louder or talk softer? Talk louder. Okay, how's that? Is that okay? I'll try to hold my thought. So I'm just going to put my glasses on here. So I would like to focus on our work supporting healthy democracies and a more innovative public sector. Both programs are oriented toward good governance. And on a side note, typically we say governance and not just government in recognition that public problems and their potential solutions are complicated and systemic in nature and involve multiple institutions at all levels of government, markets, civil society, and more. So on the innovation side of our mission, how we define good governance looks a little different than how our democratic governance program defines good governance. On the innovation side, we're guided by a set of values that say good means flexible, efficient, effective, and modern. In other words, it has to work. On the democratic side, we're looking at a set of values that say that good means participatory, representative, and I know my colleagues are going to talk about this too, transparent, and responsive. So those are the values. There's government has to work, someone has to pick up the garbage, someone has to keep the place safe, but they also have to represent these core values. So we have done a lot of work lately on political participation because certainly in our country the lack of interest in people voting is a major challenge for us right now. And how to get people that are more marginalized, that is the where government is not just the representing the voice of a few, our famous 1% in our last election, that's what the Ash Center is really focused on right now. Better public participation in the political process so that governance can be good in the sense that it's representative and transparent. So a number of our scholars are actually women who are one of the most senior scholars there is a wonderful woman who is sort of at the forefront of something called deliberative democracy. Her name was Jenny Mansbridge, and she became active during the women's rights movement. She was very, very, very much involved in trying to pass NOW, which was the National Women's um, Act amendment, which didn't pass. But Jenny is interested in democratic deliberation, which looks much more at how to talk to each other in a way that is much more effective than the way politicians usually talk. In other words, you actually deliberate together. You get on the same side and talk about an issue. She has very scholarly work on this. I'm just going to touch briefly on it. But that's one kind of way of new democracy coming along. We have another junior faculty member, Candelaria Garay, who studies democratic politics in Latin America, and particularly issues of redistribution. And recently, we're doing an amazing study, a 5-year study, funded partially by the Gates Foundation, which is called the Transparency for Development Project, which looks at how a community scoreboard can improve outcomes of particular interest to women, maternal and neonatal health. So this is a 5-year study. It's taking place in 100 villages in Tanzania and Indonesia each, showing that trying to figure out that if they interfere, or they call it an intervention, which I found a little odd, give people a chance to have something to say about their health and really design what they think would be helpful to them, these women, does that really affect health outcomes? So in other words, if you start out with a more participatory, transparent system, is that going to mean that the women are going to actually have better health and healthier babies? One of the most interesting things that is kind of a worldwide phenomena was started in Porto Alegre, Brazil, and it's called participatory budgeting. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. But the idea behind it is that you could get direct public engagement, people who really cared much more about politics, if they actually had something directly to say on how their money was being spent. It's kind of an obvious idea. But in representative democracy, obviously, we elect people that makes those decisions, and hopefully they're doing a good job of it. But this is trying to get even more direct to people. It's directly involving people in neighborhoods they set up a system and set aside a certain amount of money so that people can decide for themselves what kind of improvements they want to see that would affect their lives in their local area. And this has become a phenomenon in the United States. And we have, again, a woman scholar, a young woman scholar, whose name is Holly Russin-Gilman. And she has just published a book called Democracy Reinvented. And it's about participatory budgeting. And we also just developed an award, a $100,000 award, to try to recognize public participation projects in the United States. That's the Ash Center's trying to be more active and really try to promote government that is effective. And we just gave our first award in public engagement to the City of New York, which has a very effective participatory budgeting program. Most of the people that were involved in the decisions in New York, which was, as you know, a big place, not as big as New Delhi, but pretty big, were women. At the award ceremony, I was very struck by the people that came to represent the community, were the women who were the real activists in the neighborhood and making the decisions about how to spend the money. So that's just a little bit. I don't want to go on and on. I think I'll end there, but I just wanted to say that I think that there is increasingly models of good governance that are directly trying to involve people that have been marginalized, that don't necessarily vote, by involving them, hopefully, much more locally and directly in decision making, which would then, everyone hopes, would lead to people being more involved at all the different levels of government. So thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Lola Moreno. En primer lugar, disculparme porque no domino el inglés. Entonces, para ello voy a contar con la ayuda de mi compañera y amiga Miriam, que va a traducir lo que yo exponga.
Good afternoon. I'm going to translate what she says. Her name is Lola, Dolores Lola Moreno. She is the Director General for the Gender Equality Policies at the Madrid Regional Government, and she wants first to apologize because she is not fluent in English, so I'm going to help her in order to give the presentation and to communicate whatever she wants to say.
No sé si van a poner la presentación. ¿La presentación? Bueno, en primer lugar, decir, como bien ha dicho Miriam, soy la directora general de la mujer de la Comunidad de Madrid. Originariamente yo soy inspectora de policía, de la Policía Nacional, licenciada en Derecho, y en la actualidad soy la directora general de la mujer, como decía, de la Comunidad de Madrid. Madrid es una comunidad autónoma de España.
Okay, Lola, she was. I'm going to introduce her a little bit. Her background. She was working as an inspector, police inspector at national level on gender issues, and for more than 15 years. And at this moment, she is the Director General for the Gender Equality Policies at the regional level, and Madrid region is located in Spain. Spain is a part of the European Union.
En la actualidad, Madrid tiene más de 6 millones de habitantes, de los cuales el 52% son mujeres, y también destacar que la Comunidad de Madrid está integrada por 179 municipios, más que nada para ubicarnos.
As a background, we want to say that the Madrid region it has 6 million inhabitants. Half of them mostly are female, half of them mostly are male. So there is a gender balance about the inhabitants, the population. And it is also important to mention that within the region is divided within different municipalities. There are 179 municipalities, which in addition, it forms the region.
En cuanto al marco legal, la norma fundamental de España, que es la Constitución española, reconoce el derecho a la igualdad y a la no discriminación por razón de sexo entre mujeres y hombres.
Okay, on the gender equality policies, we have to base our policies on the legal framework. The legal framework that guides us to develop these policies are mainly the Spanish Constitution, which has 2 main articles on this. And for example, it exactly recognizes the right to equal and non-discrimination about gender between male and female.
Asimismo, tenemos una ley con el máximo rango legal, que es una ley orgánica, que precisamente regula la igualdad efectiva entre mujeres y hombres, de tal manera que en España no puede haber discriminación entre mujeres y hombres por